From Hong Kong, Chicago, and the city of Stoke-on-Trent, this is the Classic Lenses Podcast. Hello, and welcome to episode 94. My name is Simon Forster, and I'm joined by Johnny Sisson and Perry G. Hello, Johnny.
Good morning, Simon.
I know why you're happy now, but we'll move on to that shortly, and that's going to be hello, Perry.
Hello.
Hello. Right, well, we didn't get a normal show out last week because we had a few technical problems, so do apologise for that, for those people waiting for the regular episode 94 that we had planned, which was actually going to be with Cheyenne Morrison, and we were going to send him to a desert island, and he was going to talk about his desert island lenses. And the good news is he will be back next week, but I think we probably need to let you in a little bit more as to what actually happened last week, because we were all set up to do the show. We did have a few connection issues which we largely got resolved, and hopefully my sound quality is a lot better than it was last time, but our well, it's 12 o'clock in Cairns in Australia where Cheyenne was, and 10 o'clock in Hong Kong, and we were waiting for Johnny to get home on his bike to join us, and he was running a little bit late, and then he said, "Oh, hold on a second, I just need to disappear for a little bit," and then he disappeared for about half an hour, and then it got a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and ultimately we decided it's probably getting a little bit too late for Cheyenne. And as a result of Johnny's extended time in the toilet, I think is perhaps the best way to put it, that led to effectively the cancellation of the podcast for last week. But I think it also led to something quite special, which was the audio diary that we have from Perry, which I think we'll come back to that in a short while. But I think after saying all those things, I think I should now hand over to Johnny for a full explanation.
So I don't know if any of you saw, I'm looking at this was November 24th. There was a news item on the news about a new special toilet coating that would effectively, what it would do is it would reduce the amount of water needed to be used in flushing toilets, because fecal matter would not stick to the toilet bowl. It would just slide right off, right?
Yes, I saw that story.
Did you see that story? Okay.
Yeah.
So my first thought was, when are they going to put that in spray form for asses? Because then you would not have to spend any time wiping. You would just slide right off. I mean, is that?
Oh, they're gonna if that gets released anywhere, it's gonna be in a Japanese bidet.
Oh yeah, the Japanese are like crazy about their bidet stuff, right?
Yes, their toilets are.
They have like radios in them.
Ahead. They're they're heated, and they watch everything for you.
Right. And I think that sounds kind of amazing, because I really, really like toilets, especially in the morning. And I like to spend a lot of time in the morning on the toilet, because I'm a man and I'm 50, and that's what I do. I poop. So to be fair, I was home. I just got up. Well, I didn't get up late. We were going to start extra early because we had Madman Cheyenne Morrison was going to be joining us on the podcast. And I'm like, I need some rest for this, because that dude's going to take a Quaalude, because he is a psycho man, right? So I'm like, I am not rushing this. I'm going to get up when I'm going to get up. I'm going to do my best, but I cannot get my ass out of bed and do this. So I just basically went through my normal routine. I spent my normal amount of time on the toilet, which it's not even constipation time. It's just, it takes its own time. And there's a lot of wiping involved. So Simon really, really, really just wanted to hear me talk about poop is what's going on here. He really, really, really wanted to start this podcast with me talking about poop. So we had to start over. We started this once already, and he's like, "Wait a minute, shouldn't we give them a proper explanation?" That sort of thing, right?
that my accent, is it? Okay.
I only do one accent that's vaguely English. Okay. So yes, I had to poop, and we started the podcast really, really early, and I was late for an early podcast, and I had to poop, and then my computer did not want to connect. So all of those things taken together, it ended up being like already 2:00 in the morning for Cheyenne or something like that. So we're like, all right, you know what? Screw it. We're going to just put this off. And then there were some other things as well. But Simon really wants to make this all about my pooping.
Well, I do think we should start talking about your diet. I mean, are you lacking in fiber? Because it certainly sounded that way.
No. You don't understand. I probably poop 8 times a day. I am more regular than a kindergarten class. An entire class of kindergartners. Yeah, I forget it. Yeah, I can beat them in a poop off.
That might be regular, but that's not healthy, is it? That's not right.
Oh, I think it's very healthy. So fiber is certainly not my issue.
Well, if we do have any gastroenterologists listening to this podcast.
No. I do have irritable bowel disorder. And now, Simon, I think you're being really, really insensitive towards my disability. So I think that maybe we should, hashtag irritable bowel syndrome, maybe, or something like that as an order.
Yeah, I do seem to be a bit slow on the uptake there. So do apologize there, Johnny. So everybody now knows that. And I guess now we can move on with the rest of the podcast, I guess.
Now that I've shamed you, Simon.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Okay. Well, let's move quickly away from Chicago to Hong Kong,
poop capital of America.
So Perry, we heard about what happened the previous week. Has the last week been any better?
So we're going from one end of the spectrum,
going from shit to shit,
all the way to the other end of the spectrum. Yeah, it's been a little bit better this week. That audio diary that I released. First of all, I'm thankful for all of the people who sent me really kind messages afterwards, as well as just people for listening. It was kind of odd to record that on my own, but I felt kind of bad that we didn't have a show. B, I kind of got the idea from those solo audio diaries that Sunny 16 has been doing. And I told Graham of Sunny 16 this while we were chatting about the audio diary after he listened to it. And he he was so taken aback that something sort of deep had come out of their solo audio diaries. But I think it also kind of ended up, it was very cathartic getting that off my chest. So thank you for letting me do that. But it was also, I think, just, it worked a little bit better in that format, I think, than our usual. Simon will ask us, "Oh, how was your week?" And we talk about lenses and stuff. But I think last week with a guest on, if you asked me how was your week, I don't know what I would have said or how that conversation could have evolved naturally. So thank you for letting me do that. It has been better this week because we just had our district council elections yesterday, so it was fairly peaceful leading up to those elections. The district councils don't have a huge amount of power, so it's largely symbolic, and we don't get to elect our actual leader, but the turnout was a record high of over 71%. And previously, the pro-Beijing parties controlled about 300 something out of 452 seats or 400 something seats. And this time they got completely wiped out. The final tally is 388 seats swung to the pro-democracy camp. The pro-Beijing camp has, I think, 58 or 59 seats. And pretty much every district is now controlled by a pro-democracy majority. So that was nice news to wake up to. Let's put it that way. So one of the most satisfying moments from last night, apart from the huge turnout and the landslide victory, which nobody really expected this margin, was one of the most notorious pro-Beijing counselors, a guy named Junius Ho. A little bit of background on why he's so notorious. he's in a district called Yunlong or Tunmun, which is a very not rural, but it's a district out in the northwest. And on July 21st, there was an incident after a peaceful protest downtown where at the subway station in Yunlong, there were dozens of masked triads, which are basically our sort of organized crime, with sticks and all kinds of weapons, who stormed the subway station and basically beat up everyone in the station and anyone who remotely resembled a protester coming home. And the police were nowhere to be seen. And in a press conference later, they gave this really horrible excuse where they said, oh, our emergency lines were clogged. We got about 30,000 calls in 30 minutes, so we couldn't deal with it. Which, I mean, that makes no sense because everyone was calling about the same thing. So this counselor, as well as a bunch of riot police, were filmed later in the night, basically shaking hands with and hanging out with these guys who had beaten everyone up. And they were patting each other on the back and being all chummy. So that was one of the kind of pivotal moments in this entire saga. And he has been a figure of extreme controversy, not only since then, but particularly since that moment. So when he lost his seat, there were just people cracking open bottles of champagne all across Hong Kong.
That's nice.
To celebrate. So yeah, today, there's a glimmer of hope. And it's been a better week. So you guys listened to that episode?
Oh yeah, no, it was great, Perry. I listened to it, a little bit right when we were working on it last week to put it out. I had started to listen to it as we were, kind of putting everything together, but I didn't really get to listen to it till last night. I was developing film, and I'm like, perfect time. And no, it was really great. And I was thinking, I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I'm really glad you recorded it because I think down the road from now, you're going to be really glad you have it, and it will help to sort of put things in perspective, maybe.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like, an personal oral history. It's like there are so many people in the world right now actively trying to replace the truth with a narrative of lies that they would prefer to be the truth. And unfortunately, history sometimes rewards that activity. And there are people in this world who are very good at that activity, like almost scientifically good, and they know how to do it. And it's very easy to replace, to seed fiction out there into the world and make it become facts. So the fact that the only thing I think that keeps the truth alive are all these oral histories that people are. I mean, I'm thinking of Syria and the Russians and the Syrians are trying to create this narrative that the only people fighting it back against the government are Muslim extremist insurgents, which is not true. They have been bombing their own citizens. They've been killing their own people. And there are people, lots of people who are otherwise reasonable, who are believing all of this bullshit because it's been seeded into various media outlets and people don't trust the mainstream media, blah, blah, blah. So people are believing this stuff and they're repeating literally created narratives. And on the other hand, we have all of these firsthand accounts. We have all of these YouTube videos of literally people being murdered by those regimes. So it's like in the end, the only thing that is going to ensure that the history books are correct are narratives like the one that you made, because you can't, you're there, the real story, what's going on, you're seeing it all and you're explaining what's going on. Right. And that's the only thing that we have that's going to protect us ultimately from lies becoming reality. So, I mean, I think it was amazing what you did, and I'm really glad you did it. And I'm really glad it was in any way related to this podcast. And I thought that for you personally, I was really glad that it existed, that you have it. So I found it really moving from that perspective in particular, Perry. And there's just a lot in there that was really, really thought provoking, and something that I could just really relate to was how unnormal it is, especially in the city, when things start to break down. I mean, it's a really big deal. It's a really, really big deal when normal life in a city starts to break down, because I mean, you're talking about, especially say like Hong Kong, you're talking about the economic impact of all of this is I mean, it's huge. And that's the way cities think. I mean, you know, cities are all about the generation of revenue, basically. And it's the same with the protests I've been to in Chicago. It's a really, really big deal if you shut down a street to get your voice heard. I mean, that's a huge thing. And it's taken very seriously, to the point where what happens in return, you get an armed response and a violent response. So, I mean, the fact that the response is as serious as it is, it's attesting to how serious the issues are that people are protesting against. Because the simple fact of shutting a street down means you're cutting off the economic generation of a city, and that sort of disruption is really notable. So it shouldn't be underestimated by anyone what's going on, and I think you said towards the end that people need to be vigilant. They can't get desensitized, and I thought that was a great statement, not just for Hong Kong but for the world right now, because it's so easy to get desensitized, and it's a strategy. I mean, it's part of Trump's strategy is to just beat everyone down with his constant stream of bullshit. I mean, that is a plan. That is not accidental, right? So it gets to the point where you just turn off, and then the people who want to believe it think it's really true. So it's huge that you recorded this, and it's huge that people are vigilant right now and do pay attention and think about maybe even doing their own. Just write stuff down. I mean, make a record, what you're experiencing anywhere where you're experiencing anything, record it, keep it, share it. Even if you don't share it, you have it, it's a really big deal. So thank you so much, Perry, for sharing that. And I feel so strongly about the fact that you did this. And I think it's just a great thing. And who knows where things are going to go, but you've recorded the facts of what happened, and nobody can ever take that away. And that's a huge thing.
Yeah. I mean, thank you. The entire recording process, I recorded it in 2 takes, with just a brief break in between for drinks. And I was actually worried that it would just be boring, because I was trying to be as descriptive as possible of just what I was seeing, without some of the more graphic details. But what you're saying about the narratives, it really resonates, because, I was seeing things near the front lines with my own eyes, and things that were really moving. The stories I told about ordinary citizens picking up bricks or marching towards the university chanting, "We're coming to save you." And the government has been pushing this narrative that there's this massive pro-establishment, what they call the silent majority, that are, firmly against the protests, but they just remain silent because they're intimidated or something. And they kept saying that this past election, that would show itself, to the point where I started getting worried and genuinely believing that as well. So it's partly contributing to the relief of waking up this morning and seeing that the city's got everyone's back, with such a landslide result. But it's tricky, because from the perspective of photographing it and going into it almost with a photojournalistic mindset, it on the one hand you want to be descriptive, but on the other hand, it's hard to tell the full story, with the photos that you're taking, because the perspectives that you get are partly limited by where the police will let you go safely. And also because I don't know. It's an interesting interplay because a lot of people have told me after that episode that the recording gave a lot of my photos more context, which I think is helpful because oftentimes I only really get to photograph things from the point of view of where the police are, simply because I can't get past them. And I do have other photos that I haven't shared yet, but the narrative that you get from one body of images, I think it's a little bit limited. So being able to record that audio diary was very, it felt like I just had a lot to get off my chest because it was like, I've got all these pictures that I'm sharing with you guys almost on a daily basis, but they're not telling the full story of what I'm seeing. And it was so frustrating that, I'm with you on that. I'm really glad I recorded it. And I think I will look back and think that was totally worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say when I heard the recording, because I wanted to hear it before putting the music on at the end, which I'm sure you'll talk about in when I stop talking, actually, just to explain what that music was, because for those people who hadn't seen the notes. But I listened to it all, and I decided I'm going to play this tonight at tea time when we sit down as a family to have something to eat, because I just wanted my two boys and my wife to hear what you'd said there, because I think everything that your report was very, very measured. You could tell there were things that you didn't say and could have said, and I think you reached a level of. There were certain areas in there that were quite disturbing, but I think you described them within context and without shock value. And I felt that was it was okay for the audience that for I say with my family with two kids, but it's also a case that towards the end of it, especially when you were talking about people talking about what was happening in the university and the parents heading towards it and so on. That was becoming, my wife became quite emotional just hearing that, and it just made everything very real, because you see things on the news, and at the end of the day, you might get 5 minutes on the news, even if it's a major event that's happened in Hong Kong, and that's probably about as much as you would ever get over here. And I guess in the UK, we probably hear a little bit more about it than perhaps other parts of the world, simply because of the historic connection. But to hear that long form, 50 minutes, well spoken, and I think the way you actually put it together, everything had purpose. It wasn't rambling. Everything was going somewhere. So your attention was held all the way through. It was quite odd to hear you talking about the lenses or camera that you were using. That sort of jarred with everything that was in there. But but then again, that is the context of where that recording came from and why we hear from you every week. But hearing it from you from I don't know how many episodes we've done together now, and so there are a lot of people that know you well. And this is something when I was having a chat to Graham from Sunny 16, because we did have a talk about it, and he was saying just how powerful it was to actually hear a voice that and you recognise and you can relate to, talking about everyday events that are happening in Hong Kong, and these events are so extraordinary, and it just really brought the events, it brought the humanity of what was actually going on there to life. So again, I'm really grateful that you did this, and I think anybody that's not listened to it, please go back and listen to that. And not only that, if you can get the word out and share it because really, let's face it, nobody's going to go up against China and walk down the streets of Hong Kong to help the protesters militarily. It just isn't going to happen. But there's public opinion around the world that can and will make a difference to the people of Hong Kong, and so the more these stories of what's actually going on get out there, then the better it's going to be for the people that are living there now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of it is the comfort that it brings. The messages I've gotten this week, it's been humbling and comforting just to know that people out there are listening and paying attention. Just like it was humbling and comforting this morning to see our district council results. That, you know, I tried to be as you say, measured as possible. And I do want to point out, by the way, to our good friend Jeremy North, that I don't think I said the word like once.
I don't think you did either, Perry. No, it was all like a like free.
Exactly.
Yes.
So there you go, Jeremy. But just a quick word on the music at the end. That was maybe me showing a bit of my true colors. But that song is called Glory to Hong Kong, and it is essentially, it's become a de facto anthem of the peaceful protests. And it's essentially a song about freedom and democracy in Hong Kong. And I think, we have a couple of listeners who I won't name, who I know are in Hong Kong and have listened to it. And it really hit them when that started playing, because that song has a lot of resonance here. And adding it to the end was, number one, thanks to Simon for the awesome editing job and weaving it in seamlessly. Yeah. But that was more of a nod to just everyone in Hong Kong who's been suffering these past few months, because they know what it means.
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually thinking the same right at the end. Just about the music, but also that I was thinking, damn, Simon is so good at this. I don't do anything but come on and talk about poop. And here's you guys kind of did this whole thing together, and it was really great. The whole thing all together, they just turned out really, really nicely.
Thank you guys. And ultimately, like, thank you for, there's the like, thank you for just letting me do it. Because I think when I first raised the idea, I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, are they going to think I'm hijacking this podcast just to rant for an hour? But I think it worked out. And I encourage, as Johnny said, any listeners. I mean, hopefully you're not in a situation where you're getting tear gassed. Yeah. But even if it's not an audio diary, keeping notes and of course the images that you're making, they have power.
They do. Yeah. I was thinking about, and I'm pretty sure this is lost. I don't have it anymore. But I don't want to talk about this in very much detail, but I had a very direct experience with 9/11, and I have a whole legal pad, I have it maybe somewhere, I don't know, of notes that I made after, several days involved with that, and some photos that I took, and it was I'm actually hope that it's gone, because I don't ever want to see it again. but for a long time, it was, had I not done that, I would never have sorted out the experience I had. And, so it's like one of those things where it's really important at some point to collect and gather your own narrative of things that you're involved in that are bigger than yourself. So I guess it, for anyone that it feels like they're experiencing anything that they feel like is bigger than themselves, I mean, record it, share it, do something to make a record of it,
And, to bring it kind of back on topic, one of the things that really struck me recording that was how much detail I was remembering just as I was speaking. Because I didn't have a script. I didn't plan anything out other than I was just going to go in chronological order. And it occurred to me that when I'm out doing photography, especially when I'm shooting film, definitely more so than when I shoot digital, for this kind of reportage stuff, I remember every photograph that I've ever made on film. Right. And if I look at it, I can tell you exactly what the sort of circumstances, almost what I'm thinking and experiencing at that time. Yeah. With a few exceptions, like random pictures of my cat. And so I think the fact that I was, I had this week where I was photographing constantly, having the camera in my hand almost made me more present and conscious at what I was seeing. Like I was looking and not just seeing, because when I'm in these situations and I don't have a camera, which is very rare, it's very easy for it to all be a blur. And those details don't necessarily stick. So the photography has really been a way to not only document and express, but I think it's also helping me remember. Yeah.
And that's what my experience was when I wrote this big. Yeah, I wrote kind of this really detailed description of several days that I had, and it something happens when you reflect like that, when you have to like turn it back out into, when it has to process through your brain and turn back out into words. It's something different happens with all of that stuff you've experienced, right? And to me, that's the really big thing, is like you think, well, I have my, I experienced it, I have memories of it. Yeah, but it's not the same until you turn it into some form of your own personal narrative, because you will say things you wouldn't have expected you would have said, because you're processing them in a different way, because you're forcing yourself to speak or to write. So that's why I say I think it's such a big deal that people create their own, histories, basically. Because it does change things. And I know exactly what you mean, Perry. I can pull like any random negative going back 25 years and remember taking the photo on film, and I can remember what was going on and where I mean, it's really weird. To me, it's really strange how that works, but I have exactly the same experience where I remember every single thing I've ever shot, Yeah, so those two things combined together, I think, between the photos and the words and processing the words back into language is, it's really it's a unique experience. It's not just a memory anymore, because memories are weird. I mean, they change. That's the nature of how our brains work, So it's different to sit down and actually thoughtfully process all of that memory stuff back through your brain into, something you're verbalizing.
Yeah, I mean, there's one image that I'm looking at right now, which is I'm shooting it from a footbridge, and there's a bunch of police who are marching down away from the university. And in the sort of mid-ground, there's a group of riot police who are raising their blue flag. And this was the story I told of them essentially raising their unauthorized assembly flag at random families who were coming onto the street from their apartments. And it was only in recording and describing that moment did I kind of feel how shocking it was what I was seeing, because when I was actually photographing it, all of that sort of anxiety and fear translates into focus. And so I remember looking at this thinking, okay, they're raising this flag over and over again. I want to wait for them to raise the flag again, but also a moment where the sort of commanders are marching into the empty part of the frame, so that I can have this row of police cars in the background and then a flag in the midground and the commanders in the foreground. And I remember consciously thinking about all of that in sort of constructing the image. And when you're in the moment, the emotional impact of what's going on hits later on. And I found that time and time again, that as I was shooting these events, I'm in the zone as a photographer. And then there were times afterwards where I would just like sit down on the curb and be shaking with the emotional impact of what I'd just seen. But it doesn't hit me until I'm done shooting, because it's like, you can't not focus when that stuff's happening,
Yeah. Right. Well, I just want to say one more thing, and that's and I know this is a sentiment of a lot of people, and you've had messages to say as much. I've received messages, and actually a couple of weeks ago I was out on a photo walk in Merseyside with Fraser Yule amongst others, and he sort of took me to one side and said, "You need to have a word with Perry. He needs to stay safe. Stay safe. He's putting himself out there in way too much danger." And I mean, only you can judge that one, but I think it's understandable why people have that opinion, and frankly, I share it as well. So I hope you do manage to continue to stay safe and appraise the situation as a whole, rather than just on a minute by minute basis.
Yeah, thank you for that. I will. I'm not that crazy. And certainly, some of the photographers here who I've mentioned before, like Cheng Wai Hawk, they're out there on the front lines. They're doing the really insane work. I'm just watching from a distance. I've been using 85 millimeter lens for the last couple of days while shooting. And number one, it is possible to focus with it. And number two, the reason I've been using that lens is for precisely that reason, because my distance of comfort has gone longer and longer and longer as as the situation's deteriorated. No more 28 millimeter lens in the face of these cops these days.
Yeah, good.
That's it. So photographically, how's this week been for you?
I haven't shot a lot since things have, all the focus has been on the siege at the university, and there's no way to get anywhere near. And there's a couple people holed up inside still, and the cops have basically just blockaded the whole area. So I went shooting the other day with my M3, which has recently returned from a CLA. And I was thinking, I'm just going to shoot some random stuff and try to not take photos of riot police, because otherwise I'm going to go insane. But then I ended up in Hong Kong University, which was the scene of an earlier siege, and the place is completely trashed. And I ended up taking photos of aftermath at HKU. So apart from that, I've been mostly taking pictures of cameras and bringing cameras with me. That said, my M3, now that it's back from a CLA, is absolutely stunning. It's a double stroke, so the film advance feels just so smooth. And the repair guy actually managed to clean the rangefinder patch, where I thought there was some corrosion on the mirror, but actually it was just a little bit of dirt. So that is bright and beautiful. And the one thing that he wouldn't do is replace the vulcanite, because mine is starting to chip quite heavily. And every single time I go out and shoot with my M3, just more pieces of vulcanite fall off. And he just said to me, "No, man, keep it on. It looks cool, and only replace it when it gets so bad that it's essentially uncomfortable to hold." And I thought, okay, fine. I'll deal with the aesthetic, ugliness.
I was just going to say, you just mentioned that it's a double stroke. You can answer a question I've had in my mind for a while. What's the point of a double stroke over? Because I assume that means you have to wind it twice for the frame to clear. Is that correct?
Yeah. I don't know. It all the single strokes you can double stroke or triple stroke as well.
Yeah.
But the double stroke, it's really fast. It's 2 quick strokes to advance, rather than having to advance it all the way. But I don't know.
I think the theory was, as I understand it, well, a couple things, and somebody, I'm sure some like a man will correct us if this is not right. But I think that there were 2 things. There was a film flatness issue that they were thinking that they needed the double stroke would provide a flatter film because of basically how it was, placing the film in the film gate. Uh-huh. The other one I was thinking of had to do with the static on the glass pressure plate, but that's a different thing. So my understanding of it was that it had to do with like a film flatness thing. I freaking love double stroke Leicas.
Yeah, they're nice. Eh?
They are. To me, they're like, if you want an M3, I would want, a low serial number, double stroke, no preview. I mean, to me, that's like the real legit thing. I love those cameras.
Yeah, mine is an early double stroke with the older viewfinder, which is slightly bluer and a rounder shape.
Yeah.
It feels so nice. There's, the M2 is really nice, but if it had a 35 millimeter frame line, this is the only one I would use.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Wow.
Right. So, how about you then, Johnny? How's your week been, or 2 weeks even?
Oh man, I was trying to count last night. So I've been trying to catch up on all of my backlog of film developing before the year ends, which I had about 60 some rolls of film that needed to be developed, and most of it was C41, which I'm pretty sure I'm on record here as saying I hate developing C41. I know some people say it's easier. I think that's a load of crap. For a number of reasons, I find it more difficult. And I just don't like it. Blix is disgusting. So I've been catching up, and I think I've developed since the start of November, 4-8. Oh, I don't know. Like something like 40 rolls already. So I've got about 20 rolls left. So I mixed a new C41 kit last night. I used an entire C41 kit the past week. Like
Whoa.
I usually let them go for, I think 40, to me, like about 40 rolls is the cutoff where I feel like, okay. Cause I had mine die after about 40 rolls, but it was also like 7 months old. But I was like, all right, rather than just be an idiot, I will just dump this after 30 rolls. Which I did, because then I figured the rest of my film that I had to develop, it would be all off of one batch of chemistry, and it would be, I wouldn't have to start a new batch in between, for consistency's sake. So I dumped it, and then I immediately regretted dumping it because I'm sure I could have gotten at least another 20 rolls out of it. But anyway, I dumped it and mixed a fresh batch to develop the rest. But then, of course, I assumed we had more C41 kits at Central Camera, which we sort of do, but there is like a worldwide shortage of C41 home process kits right now. So fortunately, I had one in reserve, and I picked up a liquid C41 kit, which is all they had at Central. So I still have one in reserve, and I have a fresh batch mixed from liquid, which I actually much prefer mixing it from powder, but whatever. That's just me. So anyway, that's what all I've been up to, really. I've been shooting a little, but I've been developing like crazy, and kind of just like spot reviewing quickly the negatives while I sleeve them. And it's been really, really good to do that, because a lot of stuff that you don't get that instant feedback, right? But my feedback has been delayed even further in some cases, because some of this film is like over a year old, because I hate developing C41. So I've been putting it off. And so anyway, I finally got the Cinestill color control, temperature control system, which is basically a sous vide for film. And it's been absolutely brilliant. I mean, it is like changed. It's one of those life-changing photo things. It makes it so much easier. And I highly recommend that if people are at all serious about developing, even black and white, it makes easier, because it's just, you don't have to screw around with temperature at all. It's just, you set it and it's done. And if you want to be really consistent with, doing film, I feel like over time, it's like one of the fundamentals of being consistent is time and temperature. And this just like makes one of those things like super dead easy, So it's been really great. And I would recommend, if you're going to get one, sure, pay the extra $10 or whatever and get this one from Cinestill, because they're good people and they're awesome. And let's reward them for making such a great product that's like intended for photographers. I mean, yeah, you can go buy a similar thing off of Amazon or whatever that's non-photo branded or whatever and save 10. Great. But just to throw an extra $10 towards the Cinestill folks as a reward, and get theirs. So anyway, highly recommended. My hands are all cracked everywhere from all this stupid chemistry. So my fingers are dry and painful, but whatever. It's been totally worth it to get all this film developed and to finally get some feedback on some things I've been shooting. I mean, I was shooting all of these lenses and not seeing the results for the longest time, and now I'm finally getting to see it. I'm like, oh yeah, that looks really good. We had this conversation about 40 millimeter the other day. Like I was shooting that 40 millimeter and feeling really uncertain about that focal length. Like, shooting a lot of 35, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gelling with this 40 thing. Like it either feels a little too wide or a little too narrow, and I'm not sure I like it. And then I saw the photos. I'm like, no, I was totally getting in the zone with 40 millimeter. So it's been really good to kind of like see some of the stuff I've been shooting finally and get some feedback, on things I've done. And then like the discoveries, I discovered like 2 rolls of panorama double exposures. One was an accident, and I was pretty sure it was an accident when I did it. And then the next one was intentional. And it was sort of like, I'm like, well, if that last one was an accident, why don't I do one where I do it intentionally? So I have like these 2 rolls of double exposures, which I really, really like. I mean, some of them, I love them. So I haven't really been I've been taking photos, but not making photos, not like turning them into photos that I share for most of this past year. And so this is now giving me a reason to make photos again, because now I'm like really excited about making photos again, if that makes sense. Like sometimes I'm always excited about shooting photos, but I'm not always excited about then making them into actual pictures. But to have like all of this film to work with now is really exciting. So my next step after all of this processing is I'm digitizing the full rolls, in the negative sleeves, so I can make contact prints. I mean, digital contact prints. I'm shooting a photo, and then I'm just getting the photos printed as 8x10s, so that I can go through all of these contact sheets and start, sorting out what images I want to put together sequentially.
Yeah, seeing the result can really inspire you to want to get more, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wait, so the C41 processing you've been doing has been color and not XP2, right?
It's been a little bit of both. I got the actual color out of the way while the kit was really fresh, because I figured, get that out of the way while the kit's fresh and the colors are going to be the most consistent. So I have left now is about, I think 25 rolls of XP2 black. So it's black and white, C41 black and white, which, I mean, to my way of thinking is a lot less particular about color shift, because that won't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I figured this kit that I mixed, I'll get, 30 rolls developed on it, and then I'll keep the kit for another 6 months and just keep developing the C41 black and white with it, because, the only thing that's going to change, I could just kind of continue to inch the developing time up a little bit to compensate for the older developer, but there's not going to be any color shift. So that's not really an issue.
So I have 2 quick questions.
Yeah.
Number 1, XP2. I just bought a 10-pack of XP2 because my girlfriend really likes this film.
Yeah.
And it's the new stuff with the 140th anniversary badge on it.
Right.
So when I picked it up at the shop, the owner said to me, "Yo, remember not to throw away the boxes after you take the film out. Check them."
That's right.
For a winning prize ticket, like some weird Charlie and the Chocolate Factory thing.
Yeah.
So my first question is, what does that winning thing look like? Is it like a golden ticket in the box?
I don't know. I would think Ilford put a picture of it out there somewhere so people would know if they got it.
Any idea, Simon?
I was going to say, surely you would know if you saw whatever it is, even if you don't need a description of a winning prize-winning thing, do you? Really?
Well,
I don't know.
If it's like text inside the box, then you might not see that, right?
I'm sure they'll make it obvious. I just feel sorry for all those people who have put the stuff in the freezers and aren't going to find out that they've actually won something for 10 years.
That's the other thing he told me. He said, don't refrigerate this stuff and save it. If it has the red dot on it, shoot it. Because there's a prize that you can win. I think it's a tour of the Ilford factory, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because I think they pay your transportation only one way.
Right?
So it's kind of right. So that you can basically get to the UK and you can't leave or something. I don't know.
You get stuck there,
or they just render you into the emulsion.
Yeah, exactly. You're never gonna leave the Ilford factory.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. It's a silver ticket. I'm just googling it right now. It literally is a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory style silver ticket inside the box.
Maybe they should have put one. You know how you open a greeting card and it plays like James Brown. I feel good. They should have had it like one of those little things where it makes a sound when you open the box.
Oh man. Okay, so that was my first question. Second question is for color. What color films are you shooting?
Oh, there's a bunch of stuff in there. I mean, for a long time, I was shooting Fuji Superior, but man, the blues on that shit are just off the chart.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah, so I kind of moved away from that film, and you know what the thing is? I really don't shoot a lot of color film. I shoot mainly XP2. I don't really enjoy shooting color that much. So I had like this just random assortment of a little bit of Fuji and then a bunch of weird expired film that I've been kind of collecting, so that now when I shoot color intentionally, I'm kind of shooting like just random weird expired film I've collected. What I really need to do though, when I shoot color, because it's one of these things. It's like you forget it. I really just don't like shooting color film, C41 color film. If I'm going to shoot color, I'd much rather shoot E6, positives. Okay. But it's more expensive. You have to be really careful with your exposures. There's less, you have to meter it. At least I do. So my takeaway was I'm not going to shoot color film anymore unless it's E6 film, because I have the kit to develop it. It's just the same sort of thing where I'm not going to go bother to develop it until I've shot like 25 rolls of it, but I have that much film, so I really just need to start shooting E6 because I love shooting transparency film. It is like the most amazing, and it's really easy to digitize because the color is just right.
You can see whether it's right.
Yeah, you just know the color is right or not. It's like super easy, So that's kind of like my promise to myself is I'm not going to shoot it. I'm not going to shoot C41 except for the monotone stuff.
It's weird though, right? Because it's a bit of a reverse where shooting it is way more of a pain, but then the digitizing is way easier.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't shoot slide film that much anymore just because the process doesn't gel. But I mean, man, when you see those slides, it's so satisfying to just look at them with a light at the back.
It's like the most satisfying photo experience is you get the film and there it is. It's like the positive image. It looks just like when you shot it because that's how slide film is. I just freaking love it. And the other thing is that a lot of the stuff I've been shooting, I'm doing this very intentional sort of shooting where I'm not trying to get any shadow detail, where it's all about pushing the highlights really far to the edge so that the blacks just go black. I mean, even in color, and it's way easier to do that on E6 film. Because the dynamic range is so limited, right? So it's like everything that I'm shooting on color film, I should really just be shooting on color positive film anyway, because it's the look I'm going for.
Right, because you want those almost detailless shadows. Whereas,
I want black shadows and highlights that are just barely correct. So, and that's a perfect way to shoot slide film. It's like it's so good for that. So I it's kind of my decision I've made is that I really need to start shooting more slide film, and I need to crack into my frozen stash of slide film that I guess I'm just saving forever just to have it. I'm just going to use it. So
I mean, I know what you mean about the Fuji films. I don't like the color palettes on those either. Whether it's C200 or Superior 400. So apart from Portra and Cinestill, which are sort of my go-to color films for specific purposes, they're pretty expensive, right?
Yeah.
So I've been kind of working my way through over the past year different budget films, because I like to have sort of my go-to film stocks and then just some cheaper stuff that I like a lot that I can blast through.
Yeah.
So for black and white, that's Kentmere, but for color, for kind of cheap daily snapshots, I've been using pretty much exclusively Kodak Ultramax 400.
Yeah, good stuff.
I really like that stuff, and pushed to 800, it looks even better. To me, it's a hugely underrated film. I mean, it doesn't have the latitude of that Portra has, and there are some lighting situations where it just looks like crap.
Yeah,
but in nice daylight outside, or even at night, when you push it to 800, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah,
it doesn't have any of the weird color cast either.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what bothers me about Fuji is like it's a pain to deal with because it has such a magenta cast to it when you go to digitize it. So you spend a lot of time just killing the magenta cast essentially.
Right, but then you've gone too far in the other direction.
Yeah, exactly, and then you have to bring back right. So it's probably I'm speaking of it. We're probably speaking of it from the same perspective, which is as a something that will be digitized as a film that's intended to be digitized, not by a lab. It's more difficult. I mean, the Fuji's a great film. If you're going to shoot it and send it to a mini lab and get prints back, it's fine. It still is going to have a little bit of that cast, though. I mean, to me, it's always got kind of that purpley thing.
Even with a lab, it doesn't have a. You know what you're saying. It has a color cast, which some people like, and the new X Pro 3 has a simulation for it, right?
Yeah,
but I don't like that look.
Yeah. So we're on the same page there. Yeah.
And then the other thing you were talking about with 40 millimeter lenses, it's interesting because I think there was someone in our Facebook group recently who was asking about really specific focal lengths between like 37 and 43 or something.
Oh yeah.
And I used to think that was kind of ridiculous, but I've been shooting 40 millimeters quite a bit with my Leica CL, and it's a really strange focal length for me because I'm way more comfortable shooting 35 mil, and I can feel the difference when I'm shooting with 40 millimeters. I always feel like it's a little too tight, but at the same time, a lot of the times when I develop my photos with using a 35 millimeter lens, I find that I'm cropping maybe 10% of the edges off. Which is basically what a 40 millimeter field of view is. Right. But the experience I have is I want to shoot in 35 mil, but I want my final image to look like 40 mil, and I can't reconcile those, even though
that's really funny.
Isn't enormous. Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of how I was feeling too, as I was shooting the 40 millimeter, but then I'm looking at the shots and they just they look right. You know what I mean? Like I'm not looking at them thinking, oh man, that looks too tight, or oh, I really need to crop that or whatever. Most of them, I feel like the compositions are really working. So I feel like, I don't know, man, might be my sweet spot focal length or something. And the good news is, apparently my Mr. Gandhi at Camera Quest says that my Rolly he'll have it back next week. So, which means that I might have that camera back sometime in the next few weeks, which means I can go back to shooting 40 millimeter again. Yeah. So I can kind of get back into that swing of shooting it. Now that I know that it was working, I can feel maybe a little more comfortable about shooting 40 and just kind of settling into it, if that makes sense.
It's also a really great focal length if you like it for gas control on LTM bodies.
Yeah, right.
You don't have that many options.
No, there's like 5 lenses.
Are there even 5? There's the Rolly sonar.
There's the Rolly sonar.
There's the Orikkor 40f2 Summicron.
There's that Olympus LTM.
Yes.
Right. And then there's the 40 millimeter Voigtlander, the modern one.
Yeah.
Right. What else are we missing? Well, obviously the Summicron and the the couple versions of
those are the same.
Right. It's all the same lens.
Yeah,
right.
And then you have like the new Voigtlander 41.2, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, exactly. So there's just not that many choices. Okay, we're leaving the obvious one out, which is it's not a 40 though, it's a 43, right? It's that 43 millimeter Pentax lens.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It comes with its own viewfinder for some reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, can we talk about how weird that lens is? Simon, do you know the lens we're talking about?
I've got a vague recollection of it. I'm no expert on it now.
So Pentax, they have their 43 millimeter f1.9, right? Mm-hmm. For K-mount. And then it's one of those limited lenses.
Right.
And then they released the exact same lens, but with an LTM mount.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculously large because it's an SLR lens. And they made no effort to shorten the length. They just ate the flange distance and lengthened the barrel. And so you've got this SLR lens that's rangefinder coupled. That's released as a limited edition, and it's bizarre.
I've got a picture one up. It doesn't look. This one looks okay to me, actually, unless it's the wrong one. It's the SMC FA43 1.9. Unless perhaps it's short because I'm looking at the Pentax K version. That could be the.
Yeah, it's the same lens.
Yeah,
I think right.
Yeah, it looks normal on a DSLR, but I can imagine.
Yeah, it's a pancake lens on a SLR,
right?
But then on a rangefinder, it's bigger.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's that one, but I mean that it's probably really well. I guess it really is 43, but to me that's basically 45 because a lot of the 45s are actually 43s. So a lot of the fixed lens, 45 millimeter cameras, of which one of my favorite, of course, being the Petri, is a 45. But I think it's a little wider than that because when I was shooting the 40 millimeter, I really love that Petri and. It feels like a really good focal length, so I tend to think it's probably slightly wider than 45. It's pushing closer to 40.
And 43 is the true normal focal length,
right?
On 36 by 24, right?
Right, exactly. So So anyway, but again, there's not really a lot of lenses even in 45. I mean, there's a few, but not a ton.
There's a lot more sort of random rare ones, though.
Yeah.
Whereas 40, it's just, it's very utilitarian.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and I guess that brings up one other thing in terms of the what have we been doing or whatever is I've not been buying a lot of stuff at all because I don't have any money to buy stuff. I've been trading for things. But one of the things I did just recently get, and by the way, I should just point out that I am not participating in any way in this no gas November thing. Screw that. I mean,
me neither.
Forget about it. I don't even care. So so the thing that I actually bought the other day for the whopping sum of $32. I mean, $32. I used to spend that much on, beer twice a week. So somebody came into the shop, a kid came into the shop with a Minolta ALS, which is a point and shoot little Minolta fixed lens rangefinder with a 40 millimeter lens. You see where I'm going here, folks? With a 40 millimeter lens, 1.9, I believe. And so I'm looking at this thing and he wanted a battery for it or something. And I had not seen one in person. I mean, I'd seen pictures of it at, but it's like one of those things where you see it in person. You're like, oh, this is cool. It's really small and it's got full manual controls and it's got a light meter, but I don't care if it has a light meter because it's got full manual controls. And it just was like nicely made. And I'm like, oh, it's got a 40 millimeter 1.8 lens. So I'm like, all right, I got to get this thing. So I go looking around and it's like one of those stories where a lot of these fixed lens rangefinders from sometime in the mid 60s or earlier, they're almost always not working because the shutters are screwed up and they need to go to the Mike Eckman spa treatment, and have the shutters cleaned out and all that. But so I found one that is purported to be working for $32. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm getting that. And it's just going to be I just want to screw around with a fixed 40 millimeter walk around point and shoot, essentially. Little pocket camera. It's just a tiny little pocket camera. So that's the Minolta ALS, which I will have a report on. It's probably being delivered today to Central Camera. So
nice.
I just want to make a comment actually on No Gas November. Started by Jason Konopinski, I believe.
Jason, I got a Leica M2 and I don't need any more cameras anymore, and neither do you. So let's do No Gas November, Jason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just wish to thank Jason and all those people who've been taking part in No Gas November. I just want to give you a big thank you because there've been some great bargains out there this month. So I just feel like I'd be able to just sail in and just get things for half the price, and it's been great. So
that's awesome.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate that. Bringing things up to some of the things I've been up to, and actually before I do that, I just want to do a quick bit of housekeeping. Actually, was going back 2 weeks. I was going to mention this last week, but obviously we didn't get round to it. But there was a section because this happens occasionally where Perry and Johnny just go off on some love fest talking about rangefinder film cameras, and you may notice I tend to go a bit quiet in those moments where and this happened a couple of weeks ago, and Perry brought me back into the conversation, and I heard my name, and then I thought, what they've been talking. Oh, and then I remembered what they've been talking about, and
yeah, that's the classic Carl move.
That's it. And Perry suggested it goes something on the lines of, and the limitations of film cameras instill greater control and freedom compared to digital. And I didn't say anything at the time because I was dumbfounded, because I was thinking, can I really say what a load of bollocks? Or not, and I couldn't decide quick enough. And by the time the moment I really should have said it, the moment had gone, and so I just wish to apologise to everybody that was listening to that complete and utter tripe that was going on. Because at the end of the day,
where was Simon? Huh? Where was he?
Yeah, it's this thing, It doesn't matter whether you're using film or digital. If you're really into it, you're really into it. And there's this thing about, you've been talking there earlier about, knowing about every shot that you've taken on film. You've known what camera it was and what film it was, and excuse me, and so on. And that's great. And I look back about when I first got into using classic lenses on my Olympus camera, and I can still go back and look at those photographs and know that was taken with whichever lens, and simply because I was just totally into what I was doing, completely. And I think in my opinion, that's not so much about being because it's on film. It's because you're really into it and really passionate about it, and that's great. So, but I've just got to readjust the balance. It doesn't matter if you're shooting on film or you're doing it on digital. If you're really into it, you're really into it. And as long as you're shooting with old lenses, that's all that truly matters. So
unless you just don't like shooting digital, and then it matters.
Yeah. But digital's fine. And
you just shoot a lot more random crap that you're not going to remember on digital because it doesn't cost you anything.
maybe. Yeah, but
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, so that's that piece of housekeeping. And the other one was Paul Grief. I assume that's the correct way of saying your name. Alerted us in that post that we did because we talked about top cores, and he alerted us to the fact that we actually made a mistake in something we said, possibly for the first time on the entire.
What? That never happens.
It never happens, but this time it did, and he's caught us out. And we were talking about RE top cores, and I came out with a statement to say, well, if it's an RE top core, it's good. If it's UV, it's bad. And that wasn't strictly true. So holding my hand up there.
Wait, how's that not strictly true?
Well, why? Because, and Paul goes on to explain. There are some UV top cores that were made by, is it Kimco? I'm not sure if it's Kimco or Simco, which so they do have like the RE mount, the top core mount.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be the same as those mythical lenses, such as that 35 2.8. And
oh, right. Yes.
That's
now
it.
I see where you're going.
So they're not necessarily the as good as each other. I mean, I don't want to rubbish them.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I don't actually know how good those lenses are, but there's a warning out there, and really I think they're pretty easy to tell the difference between the older ones, because they tend to be silver with a black focus.
Yeah, they look totally different.
They look really different. Yeah.
And I think the later Kimco ones, are they all black? Would that be fair to say, or is there any more other variations that we know of?
The fake ones,
the Kimco ones. Color wise, how we actually identify those, or is it just a case of learn the old ones, and then if it doesn't look like that, then it might be one of the Kimco ones, maybe.
Yeah, they just don't look right. They just don't. They look like a horse that's been painted with zebra stripes.
Right.
It looks like a fake. Yeah.
Well, plus, I thought the original point, it wasn't necessarily that all top core RE lenses are amazing, just that the mount is a lot less of a pain in the butt to adapt than the UV.
The UV, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that it also goes with the UV lenses. They were the actual overall quality of those lenses. I think they farmed a lot of those lenses out on the UV mount. So
well, the whole system was problematic. I mean, that's the system that ruined Petri's reputation, or not Petri, but Topcon's reputation. Yeah. So. Okay.
So those are those things, and I actually want to try and do my stuff quite quickly, because we want to try and get some emails in. So I'm going to whiz through these as best as I can. And I mentioned that I did a photo walk a couple of weeks ago with Stig Boris, Fraser Yule, Steve Coleman, who turned up with a Fuji digital camera, so we didn't really want to talk to him, and a friend of mine called Jason. And while I was in that having that walk around, I was chatting to Stig, and he mentioned to me about I've got it in front of me. It's an LED tracing pad, A4 tracing pad that you can get on Amazon by AGP Tech, TEK, which he recommended for doing digitizing. And because I'm okay doing digitizing for 35mm, but I struggle with the larger formats just to get an even amount of light for doing this with a mirrorless camera. And I've got one of these things, and it looks really, really good. And on that front of digitizing, I had an email today from the Pixelator Kickstarter campaign, which is suggesting that the Hamish Gill's Pixelator is not that far off being completed. Yes. So there's been. It's been one of those things where, you know, getting to 90% of the project complete has been tough, but gets there. But that last 10% has been truly painstaking, and it's been very, very difficult because he's been having to deal with margins of fractions of millimeters that aren't quite working. And this is just to recap. Hamish has created this thing called a Pixelator, which is to enable people to help with digitizing film. And the idea behind it is you put a light source behind this Pixelator. It's got some a diffused bit of plastic, and then there's this thing that goes on the front which has a gate system, which you take these gates in and out and rearrange them into different sizes depending on what type of film that you're trying to digitize. So the idea is just to make the whole process simple, and but making something that works simply for people is not so simple when you're actually trying to manufacture this thing. And so yeah, it looks like it's well on the way, and we will be having Hamish on the show once that's up and running, and we're going to be doing a bit of a digitization special, and we're going to have the chap behind Negative Lab Pro on the show as well. So that's going to be coming up quite soon with a bit of luck. So that's a bit of positive news there on the Pixelator front. Yeah, so other things. That was a really good walk around Liverpool. I don't want to dwell too much on that now, but actually, I think I actually got another shot off with my Meridian. So that's another frame of portrait used on there. So that's all good news. And I also managed to finish off the roll in the Jeremy North's Contax G2. So that's all good because I'll be going back in a couple of weeks.
Wait, Meridian?
Not the Meridian. No, that's my 4x5. Begins with M. Medalist.
Oh, the medalist.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Oh my word, I can't afford to shoot portrait on 4x5. But 6x9 on the medalist. So that was good news. I've got to say, I'm not really enjoying that camera at the moment. It's just I'm just finding pressing the shutter on it just too difficult. Not mentally difficult as it sometimes is when you're shooting film and you want to make it count and all that kind of stuff. Just you get to the point where you think it's going to click and then it doesn't, and then you have to press a little bit harder, and you're pressing that hard to a degree. You worry about have you shaken the camera at the point of taking the picture. So is it going to be straight and so on? So. I've got my fingers crossed on the shots that are going to come out of that, but at the moment I'm not too optimistic. And then bringing things up to date, yesterday I was at the Wolverhampton Camera Fair again, which is always good. And the best part about it for me was I finally picked up a Petri Orikkor 50mm f.
Yes.
Nice.
So thanks to Andy Cottrell for walking up to me and saying, "Do you want one of these?" I'm thinking, yes, right. I do. Yeah. So in fact, not only I picked up one of those, I also picked up a Patterson orbital print developer, which looks fun. It's a paper developer, but I think I can modify it to do sheet film with, which looks quite interesting. But nice. Yeah, back to the main event. This Orikkor, absolutely lovely. And I was messing around with it last night, and I've shared this pretty poor photograph with Johnny and Perry last night, and it struck me that there was something interesting going on in the background, because there was like a black wire on the floor in just where I'm sitting at the moment. And
this is an example of our super scientific approach, by the way.
It is actually. Now you reminded me, because I also had a message from somebody today who described, sorry, I can't remember who sent it to me now, but described this podcast as studious and scientific.
Wow, really?
Yeah, really.
I guess today's episode will change all that.
Yeah, exactly, and every other one prior. It was. I'd focused on a near object at f2, and I took this snap. I just wanted to see what the outer focus area was like, and I just happened to have my planar, Carl Zeiss planar 50mm 1.4, and I set that to f2 and took the same shot. And it was just interesting to see the differences between the two. Quite predictably, the planar was sharper, but what was more interesting was what was going on in the outer focus area, because this black wire that was just on the floor, and it was like in a kinked and bent in a few different shapes and so on. But it was far more defined, or an edge of it was far more defined than it was with the planar, which was just smoothly blurred out. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to giving this lens a go, because it's quite legendary in the bokeh world, and even doing something like quite innocuous like I did there, I could actually see a real difference with the way that this lens was rendering.
Would you describe the bokeh as wet on wet?
No, I would not. We've not used that phrase for a while, have we? But no, but it reminded me of like the onion ring bokeh, perhaps, because one edge of the blur was more defined. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's you get that trioplan kind of look out of it. So. But the other thing that I did drop a post into photography with classic lenses, and somebody asked me, "So what's so special?" And I said, "Well, it's the only other lens that's pretty much the same as the Domiron, and by Meyer Optic." And then Mike Lowe said, "Are you sure about that?" And I was thinking, "Oh, am I sure about that?" And then I managed to dig out some lens diagrams, and it turns out no, it's not based off the Domiron, because that's a 6-element lens, whereas it's a 7-element lens on the Petri. So, but I'm sure I got it in my head that it was related to another lens. I don't know if you guys.
Well, the Domiron is just a double Gauss, right? It's slightly Biotar-esque, whereas the Petri, as you mentioned, it's a 7-element, and the rear group looks kind of different.
Yeah.
But in terms of family and the relationship, I don't know. It has that kind of like painterly craziness that you can get sometimes in the bokeh that reminds me almost of lenses like that Fuji 55 f2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's that. Well, that's all to some degree. What I'm describing there again, isn't it? You know, as you say, with that hard edge on one side of the bokeh, you know, that onion ring. So yeah, it's a similar thing, but it is a different. I mean, I think that's it's a modified Tessar, isn't it? So I think it's a 5-element lens, the Fuji. So there's something else going on here. But I've got one. I've been after one for forever, and that's all that matters. But only in this week, I'd actually, prior to this lens turning up, I'd actually bought a hood for it, because I was thinking it's like the power of positive thought. Because I was thinking, one day I'm going to get this lens. It's going to happen, and I'm not going to pay £150 for it. It's just going to turn up at something sensible, and so I'm just going to buy the hood for it. And I reckoned, because I was chatting to Johnny and said, well, what's the filter thread? Because Johnny's got one, and it's a 49 filter, but the correct hood for it is one of those that clips on the outside, and then there's a little screw that holds it in place. So there just happened to be a pretty cheap one on eBay in the UK. There was a 51mm clip on, so I'm thinking, well, that sounds right for a 49mm lens, and it doesn't fit. As in, it's as if it's too large. But I'm beginning to think there's perhaps something missing out of the hood itself, because this hood, it fits onto a Helios 44-2. Which is also a 49mm lens. So perhaps there's just something that sits on the inside that's rotted away or something like that. So I'm just going to make it fit somehow, because it looks great. It looks great with the hood on. So and seeing I bought the hood, I want to use it.
Nice, excellent.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are other things that happened this week. Oh yeah, I did a bit of a photo shoot as well with the family in the 6 times darkroom studio that's there. So I've shot some portrait on my contacts. I was going to use other cameras, and in the end I realised it's just having family members, a dog, and all sorts of things going on. I thought just keep it simple. So I've got a few shots on Portra 160 there with the contacts. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they come out, especially as I also done quite a few on digital as well. So that'll be quite an interesting comparison there to see how those shots work. Because the intention is to print them as well. So that'll be good to see. So yeah. So that's it for my week, and I think. Yeah, we did try to do some emails the other week, and we pretty much ran out of time. So we're going to have a go.
And too bad we're out of time again today, folks.
No.
Wait, but before we do emails, Simon, while you were talking, I've been looking up lens diagrams, and looking at designs that are. There's nothing that looks quite like the Petri 50mm f2 Orikkor, but there are a few lenses that seem to have a similar sort of family resemblance in the way that their 7 elements are arranged. But a lot of them seem to be much faster lenses, like the Porst 55 1.2, the Canon 51.2, even the Noct Nikkor. A lot of these like super fast 50s seem to have a similar arrangement where the rear group has the 4 elements. Mm-hmm. And the shape of the elements are different, but they have a similar arrangement. So that I don't know if any of that rings a bell in terms of when you were talking about the Petri being based on other lenses, but I'm seeing a lot of like ultra fast lenses that have a closer resemblance to this design than your standard 50 f2 double Gauss. I don't know if that's informative.
Not specifically. So, I mean, it's certainly interesting. Part of me thinks so. It was Johnny that told me it was linked to the Domiron, but am I wrong there, Johnny?
I don't think so. No. I could definitely be wrong. I mean, I'm seeing, you Google, I did a Google search quickly, image search, and somebody somewhere in all photo lenses, I haven't even followed the link here yet, but they have a side-by-side diagram of the two lenses. The Domiron and the Orikkor are side by side, and they look to be similar, but I don't know.
You know what? The easiest way for us to deal with this is to announce Cheyenne next week when you're on.
Yeah, Cheyenne, go look all that shit up for us, and then bring it in, and we'll talk about it then.
Well, he already started as well, hasn't he? Because he did post a lens diagram in the thread that I had in the photography with classic lenses. So thanks for that, Cheyenne.
This could actually be a good. We keep talking about. I don't know if Jason Lane is actually our confirmed episode 100 guest, if that has truly been hammered down. But we've talked about that. Anyway, this might be a good Jason Lane question.
Yeah, and just to recap there, do go back in time and listen to the Jason Lane episode if you've not listened to it.
Definitely.
Lots of reasons for doing that, not least that it was Carl's last episode with us as well.
Yeah,
but number 64.
There you go. And one of the things that we did in the preamble to that was we had a screen share with Jason, and he was talking through optical designs because he is a lens designer. It's his job, and he's got access to loads of old designs because generally speaking, almost nothing's new in optics. It's everything. Everybody borrows off something that happened before. There's very little that's actually new. So he screen shared this piece of software that he uses, and he started to explain why certain lenses do certain things. And what we're going to do in episode 100, hopefully, is to set that up as a screen share and record the screen share, and we'll put that up on our YouTube channel as well. I think that's going to be fascinating. If we, even if we just go over the things we talked about first time round, it'll be great just to see that happen in front of our eyes. And I think that will be an interesting lens to talk through, definitely.
Yeah, and probably what we'll do in advance of that episode is we will discuss probably a number of specific lenses of which we've had questions like this one, like what's going on with this lens diet, so that's something I think we've all been kind of looking forward to coming together at some point. So that should be an interesting one.
And I've just remember one thing, just in case I forget it when we do the shout-outs, that yesterday Paul from Commercial Cameras in Church Stretton donated a load of paper to the 6 Towns Darkroom, which is the thing that I do every Tuesday night in Stoke-on-Trent. So thank you, Paul. That was really, really generous of you. And it's included some stuff called bromoil paper, which is bizarre stuff. I had no idea what it was until I did a little bit of Googling last night. And if you're interested in alternative processes, just check out bromoil on YouTube, and there's a chap there that I think there's a four-part documentary of a, for want of a better word, a bromoil master in action.
He's the bromoil broad.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. Do check that out. I'll put a link up there anyway, so I don't want to go too much into that process because I don't know enough about it. So thanks to Paul at Commercial Cameras in Church Stretton. So should we do some emails?
So let's do email, shall we?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to start off with an email from Paul Friday, who, ironically enough, sent us an email on a So Paul Friday, Saturday, November 2nd, 2019, putting it in perspective. And Paul's entire email is these two words, any use and a question mark. And then there's a link. And this link is to a blog entry from Fup Duck Photography. And in this blog post, it starts off, want to start a fight? And I'll just leave it right there for Simon.
Yeah. So thank you, Paul. We thought we'd actually got away from this perspective thing.
Never.
And I sort of get it more than I did before, which is the good news. The less good news, I guess, from some people's perspective, is that I still want to do some stuff to prove whatever it is that's in my mind, which it probably isn't perspective, because I still think there's something going on that I'm just doing a very bad job of explaining myself. But I will take a look at this article. And one day we will revisit it in one shape or form.
All right. That's all I have to say about that. So let's go to the next email. Oh my God, this is a long one. York Wilson. York Wilson's email of Tuesday, November 5th. Subject, this aggression will not stand, all caps.
I must admit, when I first opened this email, I thought, oh no, what have we done?
Yeah, what have we done? Right, exactly. All right. So York begins, gentlemen, a while back, I began a long rant on the Classic Lenses podcast Facebook page that wound up being deleted because I am old and don't understand technology, and Facebook is inherently stupid. Fast forward to your latest podcast with John Bruning, and I was filled with a new hope when Simon began to address the podcast's legendary anti-Zoom bias and generally prime snobbery. But wait, he totally admitted it, and then you all have kind of left it hanging there like, yep, we totally do that, and we have no plans to stop. To quote our mutual comrade in film, Jeff Bridges, the dude, and Bush the elder, this aggression will not stand. Surely you all realize that the vast majority of people getting into classic lenses after they acquire one of these zooms at a thrift store or from a relative and then find out they can snap it onto their fancy new mirrorless camera with little effort. And as John correctly pointed out, the quality you can get out of these lenses with the funky ass names can sometimes blow you away. So what gives? The name Soligor not sexy enough for Perry? Johnny, do you not want neck and back problems to go along with whatever chemical damage you incurred during your darkroom days? And you, Simon, for shame. I feel like you of all people should make some sort of stand considering the number of insanely overpriced contact zooms that are available and widely known to be as good as primes at any focal length. I propose the inclusion of a once-in-a-while segment on the show to address these gaping omissions. You call it something like, how bad can it possibly be? You could bring out some pragmatic Midwesterner to, hey, I'm a pragmatic Midwesterner, to discuss his or her latest garage sale finds. If it turns out that the Kmart 85-205 f3.8 truly is an enormous black 3-pound turd, well, you've done some public service, but I bet you'll find more often than not, most of these zooms have that elusive quality I've heard so much about, character. And now, on this election day, I guess that was election day, November 5th, and in the true spirit of Chicago politics, I will go make my Ko-fi donation to the show because we all know the show. We all know that's how you get a better read on the podcast. Wink, wink, early and often. Stay gold, boys. York Wilson, Durham, North Carolina. Yeah, guilty as charged, I guess. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I just don't like him. I just don't like them. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I have a classic zoom lens that's fantastic. It's a Vivitar, I think a 70-210 with a macro focusing on the end. That thing's friggin' fantastic. I mean, on the macro end, it's like crazy sharp. I have no complaints about them quality-wise. I just don't like using them.
You know?
I forget they exist.
I mean, what's the point of carrying around a zoom lens?
Right.
On like a 70 to 200, if you're only going to shoot it at 70 or 200, which is the only way I ever use zoom lenses.
Yeah.
I think I did a test once, probably a couple of years ago with a contact zoom lens. And I think I compared it with some other zoom lenses, like I think there were a couple of Vivitar Series 1s. It must have been 70 to 210. And it did outperform them. There was no two ways about it. But just taking that point about a contact zoom being as good as a prime, well, yeah, yes, to a degree. I think back in the day, in the 80s, certainly when I started photography, I had a couple of zooms and I had no problem with using zooms. I hadn't developed my prime snobbery at that point, largely because a zoom provided you with better value for money, and that's still true now, of course.
Yeah,
but on the
really
film,
though,
yeah, of course it does.
Are there any f2 zooms that are affordable, really, that are not enormous as well? I don't buy that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we by nature zooms, it's difficult to make them as fast as primes. That's the biggest thing. Well, there's two big advantages of primes, isn't there? And that's the potentially fast speed and the fact that it's going to be probably better corrected because the complexity behind it. It's just far simpler to make a prime lens than it's ever going to be to make a zoom lens. I just realised as I was saying that I came up with the third one and said it's second and can't remember what the second thing was. It might have been fanatical devotion.
It's just like a zoom lens. You're operating at the two ends of the extreme and forgetting everything in between.
Exactly. So those three reasons, which I've only alluded to two of them, are the reasons. And I've completely forgot where I'm going anyway.
I mean, here's the thing. I do not disagree with I think when we're talking about zoom lenses, most of the time in these conversations, we're talking about the 80-ish to 200-ish super zooms that took the world by storm in the late 70s, early 80s, that basically killed the 135 prime. Because why would you want a 135 prime when you could get an 80 to 200 that would be like, having two more lenses, let's say, even if you only use it at either extreme end, because they worked and they're sharp. And yeah, they're at an 80 to 200 lens at 135. Let's say it's a 3.5 to 5.6 at the 35 millimeter portion of the zoom range. It's probably just as good as any 135 3.5 lens. There's probably no difference quality wise, right? Because that's effectively how fast it is. So, where was I going with this rant?
I don't know, but I'm not entirely sure that's completely true. And
I think
you've reminded me of what my
good.
I forgot my bit first, and I've remembered it. So you can come back to your bit you forgot. And that was when we were shooting on film. The difference, the absolute ultimate image quality that these lenses are giving us, unless we're shooting on slide film, you're not really going to see the difference. Or it's unlikely you're going to see the difference. If you're shooting on digital, I think there is a good chance you will actually see a difference, or you can see a difference.
Sure. No, fair point. That's probably true. But I mean, that I guess my point was that those lenses became popular for a reason. But more to my point is that I think mostly when people are talking about zoom lens being as good as prime lenses, they're talking about these longer lenses. They're talking about like 80 to 200s, that sort of thing. Because it's really easy to make a good longer, zoom at the long end that performs really well. What we're not talking about usually are lenses on the wider end, right? I mean, it's not like somebody's making a really amazing, 20 to 80 zoom lens that's as good as a prime lens, that's a fast and wide and well corrected. That's just not happening. I don't think. Is anybody arguing that? I mean, unless they're just talking about modern lenses on digital cameras, but who cares? That's not even our area of concern here, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of shorter zoom lenses, like the 35 to 70 range, that kind of thing, that are good lenses. I think when you start to get into the wider end, then, and especially when we're talking about classic lenses up to say the 80s or something like that, most of the third-party super wide lenses weren't that good, in my opinion. No. So you make a wide zoom, and in fact, actually think about it, are there really that many wide zooms?
That's what I'm saying. There's not there. If we're talking about zoom lenses, we're primarily talking about the longer ones, especially for classics, because the wider ones aren't going to perform that great from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They're going to be dogs, a lot of them.
Yeah,
I mean, they're going to be decent, but there's not a whole lot of like 35 to 80 zoom lenses, constant aperture. I mean, there's a few notable exceptions. I mean, there's the Leica R lens, which is the Minolta. I mean, there's a few exceptions like that, but that's not the sort of zoom lenses I think people are talking about. They're talking about picking up a longish super zoom and thinking, well, damn, this thing is sharp. Well, yeah, of course it is. That's why it stopped making 135s because they did work. But it doesn't hold true when we start to talk about faster stuff in the wider prime range.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but there are a few in that. That's what they call standard zooms, is what I would call a 35 to 70 or a 28 to 70. That kind of range.
Yeah.
Just to be pedantic, I class a super zoom as being like a 28 to 200 rather than a 70 to 210.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd say that's the pedantic side of me there. But no. I think we're all on the same page here. The other side of it, of course, and this is the biggest contradiction of the lot, and I've mentioned it before, that we all love the character of old lenses compared to modern lenses, and character generally means flaws, and inherently zoom lenses have more flaws than prime lenses. So why aren't we all running out and shooting zoom lenses? Although actually I think I already know the reason, but if it's purely character that we want, then using zoom lenses is a very interesting and legitimate way forward. It just tends to be that when we're looking for character in lenses, we're shooting wide open and we want short depth of fields, and you're just not going to get that with a standard zoom. For instance, we talked about that. The best ones out there are like the Minolta's 35 to 70, also on the Leica, but that's 3.5, and 3.5 at 50 mil is far from special.
But for me, it's not about that, because I don't shoot wide open very often at all. I shoot stop down. But to me, it's a thinking thing. I mean, it's kind of what we were talking about earlier with 35 millimeter, 40 millimeter, 45. Like these little minute differences in angle of view is what I think our brains are in tune to. I don't want anything to do with a variable angle of view lens. I mean, that would just, because that's not how my brain thinks when I'm making a photo. It's not how I'm composing. Like, oh, I'll just nudge this in a little bit more in the zoom. It's like, no, that it's like the tool. The whole point of having the tool at a specific focal length is that you don't think about that variability. Like, to me, that variability is the thing I'm least concerned with. Is if I'm too close or too far, because if I'm using a 35 millimeter lens or a 40 millimeter lens, I'm automatically already thinking about being a certain distance, and that thing that I can't quite get to across the street. Well, I'm just going to run across the street and take the picture of it. I'm not going to zoom up to it. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't.
It's even harder to run with a giant zoom lens hanging from your neck.
Exactly. So it's like, I just don't want to think about screwing around with pulling things closer or further to me. That's just not fundamentally how I think about composing an image. And I get that a lot of people do. And I get that that's why zooms are so popular in the consumer market, because it seems like that makes the most sense, right? It seems really limiting not to be able to get visually close enough to the thing you want to take a picture to. But that's only if, I don't know. I just don't think that way.
I mean, it's a process thing too, because for me, it's the size is the biggest thing. And then what Johnny's talking about is totally the case for me as well. I like as few moving parts as possible when I'm shooting.
Yeah.
And then finally, I'm a rangefinder shooter, and like zooms don't work on rangefinder.
No, right. It's just
unless it's like some stupid like a tri-Elmar thingy.
Oh, I was just that I had that in my brain, like the people who shoot the tri-Elmar.
It's the most pointless lens has ever made.
Well, but they're really expensive, Perry, and you can brag about your tri-Elmar. That's the only time I've ever heard people talk about tri-Elmars or whatever is when they are bragging about them. So
it's such a
because they can say they have it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, on this email, on Solagore, I have nothing against Solagore. Just no interest in their zooms. But if you want to chuck me a Solagore 35mm f3.5 or f2.8, that's rangefinder coupled, I will happily take that off your hands.
Same here. If you have a second one, throw it my way.
Oh, you have one. I forgot. Oh my god.
Yeah, I do. Sort of.
Okay. Well, let's move on to our next email.
Okay. Ben Reynolds. Ben Reynolds in the house. Ben Reynolds, Saturday, November 9th. Subject, Petzval. Ahoy, classic lensers. I was going to write my in-depth analysis of why SLR is better than rangefinder for medium format gig photography, but thought better of it. Maybe next time. Then I saw a tweet from Lomography about the Petzval 55 art lens, and there's a link. I was wondering if any of you had tried one of these and where you stand on new versions of classic lenses. If I ever get another digital camera, I sold the Sony after shooting 250 shots, I would definitely consider one of these. I thank you, Ben Reynolds. And then it says, Ren Reynolds, Captain Badbeard, choose your own moniker. And with that, we're going to go over to our Lomography expert, our Petzval expert, and then, of course, to Simon.
Well, I've not tried the 55, but I own the 58, which is the forerunner of this lens. And to be honest, I've not actually checked out this 55 at all. But I love my 58mm. I think it's just, I've spoke about it a few times in the earlier days of the podcast. It's just really, really good fun.
Wait, you have the OG one or the new one with bokeh control?
I think I've got the 58. So just, as we go back in time, the 85 came out first, then the 58, and the 58 has got the bokeh control, which is it's sort of a gimmick. I mean, it sounds like a gimmick, and it is a gimmick, but there are times where you can actually make use of it. And I mean, ultimately, the look you get out of the lens, whether you've got the bokeh control working properly, or you've got to off, in other words, or you go full LSD. There's a time and a place, and it's usually a case of, if you are using that lens, you're not interested in getting a straight shot. You want the look that it's going to give you, but the lens actually gives you a look straight away without actually adjusting the dial on it. There are times where it can do some really odd things you don't really want it to do. I mean, I've taken a few shots where it seems to have 2 points of focus in the shot, where both things, instead of a true normal plane of focus, and I couldn't really do much about it. So that can be a bit of a handicap at times, but you just embrace it though, and just make it. You just go for funky shots. So the main point is, I really love the lens. I've not used it for quite a while, and I think that, you know what, I think I probably should, because
no, it's okay. You don't have to.
You don't have to.
I think I do, just for you two. I'm going to go out and it's best I should go out and actually shoot HDR with it, just to. Really
no, you got to get a true. You got to get a true vintage Petzval lens for your large format setup.
Oh, I so want one. I really do. And I've seen some shots recently with some old French lenses, and oh man, absolutely blown me away on 10x8. One day, but that's quite some way away, I think. But yeah, I'd love to shoot with a Petzval on large format, no doubt about it.
All right.
Yeah. So go for it, Ben. Have fun. Knock yourself out.
All right. Next up, and this is a short one from good friend of the podcast, Ian Fleming, Sunday, November 10th, episode 77. Simon, just listening again to this great episode. She is so inspiring, Ian.
And we're talking about Isabel Cordes
yes.
there. I totally agree with that. If again, it's one of those shows, if you've not heard it, go back to it. It's a pretty inspiring listen. So Isabel's awesome.
Yeah, definitely check that out. All right, Ray D, Monday, November 11th. Subject, Johnny's Instagram. I know where this is going. Hi, guys. Not sure why I can look at Simon and Perry's Instagram account immediately, but have to request to follow Johnny's account in order to see his photos. I've hit the request to follow button, but haven't received a response yet. Are his followers a closed group? Thanks, Ray. Well, my cult is a closed group. No, I'm kidding. No, we were talking about earlier. I have been shooting a lot of pictures, but not making a lot of pictures. So that means I'm not making and posting a lot of pictures on Instagram, which means I'm really not on Instagram much at all this past year. So it's been kind of dormant, and I had to shut my account to private because I was having such a problem with spam followers and getting auto followed and blah, blah, blah. So I just finally locked my account down so that my feed would not be filled with porn spam and bodybuilder spam and homemade jewelry spam and tie-dye spam. So that's all I was seeing because of the way Instagram works. So I finally just locked it down. And I would say by the start of this coming year, I will actually be finally responding to all those follow requests. But I don't want to spend any time on Instagram right now. Sorry. But I will someday do that. And then I guess you'll get to see my Instagram stuff, such as it is, my cult of Instagram, my private cult. So that's that. All right, moving right along. Mike Rose, Monday, November 11th, The Authentic Guide to Russian and Soviet Cameras, second E edition by Jean-Luc Princel, I guess. PDF.
So, something on those lines, but I think it's Jean anyway, certainly.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, God, you guys and your French stuff. All right, whatever. Okay. Jean-Luc. Jean-Luc. Hi, Simon, Johnny, and Perry. Thank you for what you do for the vintage lenses and camera community. I stumbled on this link this morning and wanted you to have it in case you'd like to share the podcast notes. Simon, I know you have hard copies of this book, but these go for like $200 plus. So finding this in PDF format was a great find, in my opinion. I have no connection to the company. I downloaded my copy today, and it worked just fine. Thanks again, Mike Rose in Southwest Ohio. I believe this is the one that Vlad says is the legit.
Yeah, it's the Bible for
it's the legit, right?
Soviet Russian cameras and so on, and and we've been sent a link so you can download it as a PDF, which I've just clicked on it just to check, and I'm not 100% sure of what the situation is with this. So I'm slightly hesitant to share it in the notes, but clearly it's out there.
Is it one of those PDF aggregator things?
You pay for the site, pay for it. It's $8.95. But I guess I'm questioning
the copyright.
Do these people have the right to actually send this out? And that's the question.
Probably not. Yeah.
Well, maybe they do. But I don't know who Digital Express are. It's not a particularly high production value website. Let's put it that way. So
we make no warranty of.
Yeah. But it is out there. We can say that, and it's a great reference guide. I've got it, and I've used it a couple of times to find information out. Although there are times where you're thinking, "Oh, I know I'm going to check that out and find out even more than I've been able to find on the internet," and quite often actually there is actually more on the internet than there is in the book. Which is not entirely surprising, because there's only so much information you can actually put in. But there are pieces of information in there that may not be on the internet. So it's a good thing to have, and I think it's also it's that point of authenticity. Right. It's very well respected, whereas lots of things are written on the internet, and we've spoken falsehoods in the previous show, and people are going to go away and taking those things as gospel truth, and we've messed up. So people don't always get it right, and and we don't. Whereas I think published media tends to be better fact checked, and it's less about opinion, and it's usually a little bit more thought through. So what's written in the book tends to be a little bit more accurate than what people spout on a podcast or write in a blog.
Right, in
my view.
Yes. All right.
That's not to say that people don't say good things and also don't come out with good stuff in blogs, because they do. Like Mark Ekman in particular, he comes out with some great stuff in for instance. But right. So there you go.
Especially if you subscribe to his email mailing list, he will send you everything you could possibly wish for.
Oh, the infamous Mike Ekman spam incident of November 2019. We'll talk about that with Mike in the future, because we will be having Mike back with us at some time, probably slightly in the new year. It's been about a year since Mike joined us. So, okay. Next email is from Nick Hamill, Friday, November 15th. Subject, Auto Yashinon 5cm f2. Hello, guys. I've snagged a cute little sucker, an Auto Yashinon 5cm f2 lens, which is pretty darn sharp and has really nice sub-bubble bokeh. There's some oil on the aperture blades, which I'm hoping to get rid of. I've searched the interwebs for information on how to CLA this lens, but could not find anything yet. So thought of asking you to see if you have any information / diagram on how to take this lens apart. On a slightly different note, do you guys know how this lens compares to the Fujinon 55 f2.2? Nick.
It's interesting how he says that his lens is getting soap bubble bokeh out of it, because that's not my experience of when I've used a lens of that name, and that also makes me think, well, actually, certainly cosmetically, there's a number of versions of that lens out there, which is now making me wonder if there are also multiple optical configurations of that lens as well.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, Yashica made quite a few different variants of a 50 f2, 5cm f2.
Yeah, so tough one for us to answer there, because we all know the Fujinon 55 2.2. In fact, we mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, right.
But saying soap bubble doesn't register with me in that lens.
Yeah, I would. You know what I would say, Nick, is why don't you post this as a question in the Classic Lenses podcast Facebook?
Yeah, with a picture of the lens.
Yeah, with a picture of the lens, and then we can get some kind of collective wisdom on this, because I know that Mike Novak is a big fan of this lens,
or at least one version of it.
Yeah, well, and that's
the DX version specifically,
right? And that's what might be instructive, is to see the lens, and then we can get a read on which version of it is.
Yeah.
And get it. Yeah, have a better idea. So go ahead and post that in the Facebook group, Nick. And thank you for the email. All right, I'm going to jump up to the next one, which is from Jamie Bloomquist, Monday, November 18th. Subject, Old Lens Life MOOC. Okay.
Okay. I think it does. I think that title does sort of get explained later. So.
Yes, it does. So, guys, when you're bidding on Simon's lenses on eBay, pause to search Old Lens Life. It's a MOOC magazine book, magazine/book, based in Japan that features dozens of, quote, Perry level, unquote, manual focus lenses and mounts on digital cameras. And yes, most shots are almost all wide open. Mucho ufta. The downside is that it's mostly written in Japanese, but the lens names and example photos are in English. Check it out. Johnny, read this fast like a disclaimer. Jamie is not affiliated with the Old Lenses Life sales. Old Lenses Life is not responsible for any gas. Talk to your doctor before reading Old Lenses Life. Okay.
So we.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we've got a link, an eBay link to this moot.
Mook.
Right. And I've got to say, this looks right down our streets.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a really there's a website, oldlens.com, which is a Japanese website, and the dude who runs this website has some of the rarest and most exotic lenses, with sample pictures and descriptions in English. Yeah. I don't know if these are affiliated, but oldlens.com is really cool to check out.
Yeah.
As for this magazine, I'm looking at one of them on eBay, and there's just a random picture from one of the pages. And yeah, it sounds about right. I mean, the lenses on this page are Top Core 5.8 1.4, Nocton 5814, Kiss Star 55 1.2, which I've never even heard of, Trioplan 2856 Sumeron. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. I'm looking at a picture of a robot lens that's been really nicely adapted onto a Sony. So
yeah,
very nice.
Yeah, we like that. Please make it in English, and I want to buy it then.
All right, next up, I'm just tidying this multi-paragraph email. Just tidying so it'll be easier to read. Putting returns between the paragraphs because there's a lot of paragraphs in this email. This is not a short email. From Jervis Pendleton, Friday, November 22nd.
I was laughing there because you've missed one out actually that you certainly.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, you didn't have to do any tidying up with this one there. But it's another one from Ian Fleming.
Oh, super short one.
Oh, did I miss one?
Well, to save you the trouble,
please do.
I will, my little dyslexic brain will give this one a go because it's only got one sentence in it.
It's almost a haiku.
Yeah. I don't think it's a haiku. No. And it's apologies to all the people that I read your haiku out. I still regret it now. Okay, so from Ian Fleming, subject Perry podcast. This was last Wednesday, so we're almost getting up to date now. And it goes, Perry, a very informative and worrying audio diary. I wish you and your partner a safe time, and we're thinking of you. Regards, Ian.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to Jarvis then. Jarvis Pendleton.
Yeah, well, it's spelled J-E, so yeah. I'm gonna go Jarvis. Okay. Yeah, I guess Jarvis makes me think of Jarvis Avenue here in the north side of Chicago, which is Jar.
Oh, there's a Jarvis Street in Toronto as well.
Is there? And then we also have a street in Chicago that is spelled Devon. Would you like to guess how we pronounce that, Simon?
I think you have told me, but I think I've tried to strike it from my memory.
Devon.
Yeah. It's Devon, people. Devon.
There ain't no Devon in Chicago. He's some rich kid that goes to Lincoln Park West High School. All right. Hello, Perry, Simon, and Johnny. It's not a long time that I discovered your podcast. Oh, wait. Did I skip the part? No, I did read. Okay. Jervis Pendleton, Friday, November 2nd, shooting protest. Okay. Hello, Perry, Simon, and Johnny. It's not a long time that I discovered your podcast, but it has become my favorite one. So I started to go backwards to listen to previous episodes as much as I can. Perry, yesterday I was listening to your diary episode, and at the same time, news had come out of the big protest happening in many cities of my home country, Iran. But the government and police and militias are not as nice as in Hong Kong. The protest started a couple of days ago due to a gas price hike, but many believe the main reason is the broken economy, restrictions, and corruption of the government. Soon after the beginning of it, the government started violation and opened fire on protesters. Hundreds of people have been killed and more than 1,000 arrested in just 3 days since the beginning. Also has shut down the internet so that there are not enough news and media coverage. I live in the U.S. and I have no access even to my family in Iran. Consequently, today I was listening to your discussion with Johnny in episode number 71 about protest shootings, and you were telling, quote, our police don't shoot people in Hong Kong, unquote, but everything has changed during the last couple of months, as you said in the last episode, and now can see the nature of the protests has changed. And so you can feel now people becoming angrier, and now police can be violent and brutal. Also on the episode, you were talking about how easy it is to take photos of police with your camera, but in Iran, it is this situation. You cannot even carry a camera on the street, as police and militias will definitely arrest you or even shoot you. Iran has great photographers that you can find with small search and see how good they are, but you barely can find good pictures of protests, because if someone gets caught during protesting photographing the protest, there will be some serious consequences, from getting arrested to be shot. Some even had to flee the country if their pictures are shared with their names. I want to have a big shout out to people in protest all around the world, specifically my people in Iran who are in prison right now without any connection to the internet and media coverage, and shout out to photographers that capture history. Thank you for your great podcast, Jervis P. Wow. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, wow.
I was just going to say that. So basically saying you've got it easy, Perry.
I mean, honestly, compared to the situation in Iran, we kind of do, until, China starts to do crazier stuff. But that, I can't imagine not being able to contact your family. That's horrible. It is. There's so much going on around the world right now that the coverage can be quite selective. And there are, it's hard, because there are so many things out there that deserve more of our outrage and attention. And there's not enough hours in the day. You get the protests in Iran, your treatment of Uyghurs in China. There's just horrific stuff happening. And Jervis, I just hope your family is okay.
Yeah, right.
And one of the things that I just quickly searched for Iran protests on Instagram, and one of the things I noticed that is kind of in common with what's going on there versus coverage here is a lot of the photographers on the street, they either don't show or blur out the photos of people who are identifiable, simply because if, your face is shown and identifiable, there can be serious consequences for the from the government. It's certainly the reason why people wear masks here during the protests in Hong Kong, because China uses all this facial recognition stuff. So, stay safe, man, and hope your family's okay.
Yeah, seriously. It's a really big thing. I'm kind of thinking back here to the 2009 Iranian election protests, which were massive, and a lot of people were killed. And there was that, obviously that infamous moment where the young Iranian woman was basically, videotape literally dying as she was shot in that moment. And I mean, that's what worries me about, and why I sort of got a little worked up talking earlier about, what you're doing, Perry. It's like, if people could make this stuff go away and hide, and you would never know that people were dying, they would do that. So it's a really big deal. And I mean, I even think back to 2009. I was friends with a lot of, I was working at the School of the Art Institute at the time. I was an advisor there, and I knew a lot of Iranian students who were here in the US, and they were, I photographed them protesting here in the US, and it was really dangerous for them to even be photographed here in the US protesting, knowing that they were going to have to go back to Iran at some point.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like a really big deal for them. They were kind of putting their lives on the line to protest in the U.S. about the Iranian elections. So Iran is really it's scary in that regard for people who are protesting. And I guess it like you're saying, Perry, it really kind of speaks to the power of recording these events that are going on and photographing them and sharing them. It's dangerous. It's that dangerous, you know.
It takes balls to stand up to authoritarianism because, you know, like in London, you see Extinction Rebellion protesters sitting on top of a train and they get, you know, heckled and pulled down. But ultimately, you can vote out your government if you're not happy with them.
Right.
But you see, for example, these days, when there's support for Hong Kong at universities, in the West, you often see like Chinese counter protesters coming out and ripping down posters and sort of heckling them. But when you do have mainland Chinese students who are studying abroad in the US, the UK, Australia, Canada, or whatever, and who are in support of the protests in Hong Kong, a lot of their testimony you hear is done anonymously because they know that at some point they got to go back home. Right. And it's really dangerous to speak up against authoritarianism. So yeah, people who are photographing and fighting the good fight they're putting a lot at risk. And it's harrowing out there, but it's the same fight that your forefathers went through generations ago, right?
Yeah.
In America and the UK, and we're just on repeat.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Oh yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jervis. And again, the best to your family. And we hope everybody is safe. Next up, we have an email from Noe A. Friday, October 22nd. Optics question. I've often heard that 55 millimeter and 58 millimeter are superior to any 50 millimeter just based on the focal length alone. Could you please enlighten me on this? I have searched online for answers, but just never came across the correct answer. Thank you. P.S. I got the Raynox because of you guys. Wonderful lens. Cost me $10. Almost like new, Noe.
Just to, I'd say this is the second time we've mentioned. Well, he hasn't mentioned wet on wet bokeh, but that is what we're talking about with the Raynox 135 2.8 lens. But going to the question here, the 55 and 58 being superior to any 50 millimeter, that's news to me.
I've never heard that before.
I personally tend to, I really like 55s and 58s because I like that slightly longer focal length. It's better for picking things out, perhaps, or it's a little bit easier to do so. But no, it's been superior. No, that's news to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I don't know. That I think all you're going to find is various opinions on the matter. I don't know that there's any factual basis in that.
I guess it depends on what you count as being superior, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, It's such a broad term, right?
Yeah, and I'm thinking, well, generally speaking, 55s and 58s of our world tend to be the older focal lengths for standard lenses, for normal lenses. And because that's just tend to be what they were. You used to get anything between 50 to 58 and some 45 to 58 was a normal lens, and most of the big manufacturers had 58 millimeter lenses, and then they seem to gravitate to 55s, and then eventually they seem to settle on 50 as being the standard lens. But even now you get there are modern lenses which are 55 millimeter lenses. So
I mean, but it says just based on focal length alone. So I suspect this is coming from like some DP review discussion where some dude is saying like, oh, the slightly longer lens is better for portraits or whatever he's shooting. The focal length is focal length, right? There are good and bad lenses of every focal length.
Yeah, right. And again, it kind of goes back to that same thing we were discussing earlier, that a lot of 50 millimeter lenses marked 50 millimeter are not exactly 50 millimeter anyway. they're somewhere between 50 and 55, and 55 millimeter lenses may not actually be 55 millimeters. They may be 53. So it's like, ultimately some of it is market differentiation, but it's certainly not optical design differentiation. So I mean, I tend to think of everything from 50 to 58 millimeter as essentially the same type of lens. There's a few different formulas, but they're all essentially the same category of lens, in my opinion. There's not really any difference between them.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, off to the next, and we're almost done with the emails. Holy cow, we're almost caught up. Oh my gosh, I cannot pronounce this last name.
I can.
There's a lot of. Can you really?
Yeah, I can. It's. I don't know if there's a connection, but it's a town about 8 miles away from me. Biddulph.
Wow.
Biddulph.
Biddulph. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, Theo from Biddulph, maybe.
Well, not necessarily, but there you go.
It's like that. It's like that Middle Ages thing. Theo of Biddulph.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, Theo of Biddulph, Sunday, November 24th. The subject: new brackets old Nikon lenses on the cheap. Hi guys, yesterday I went to my local charity shop and bought the following for €12. One broken Nikon FE, which I'll probably never get around to trying to mend, and I think he's meaning it has on it a 35 to 70, 3.5 to 4.8. A Nikkor 50 millimeter 1.4 AI, and he's got a link here to that lens.
I think that the links are just to give us an idea, just in case we don't know what these lenses look like. So
okay,
but
so
we have
I
a good
won't
idea what these lenses are. So
Nikkor S 35 2.8. And then he says, if I understand correctly, this is a pre-AI lens. In any case, it has been converted. Okay.
The answer is yes, by the way. I've looked at that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Nikkor Q Auto 135 3.5 NKJ 7 blade F32 millimeter F32 version, also AI converted. It's all pretty great because someone gave me a Nikon N90 not long ago, and I've been looking for lenses for it. Can you guys give me any information about these lenses? Either of them particularly well known? ? Your podcast has recently become one of my favorite, with a U and an E. Keep up the good work. He's definitely got to be from Bluetooth. Leo of Bluetooth.
From Biddulph.
Leo of Biddulph. For a future episode, how about a bit of vintage lens reverse roadmap from the different mounts? Nikon F, Leica M, Olympus OM, M42. For each focal length, a cheap and more expensive possibility. Sure, I like that.
We got to do that. Finish the email first. Then I'm going to make a comment.
Special mention to Perry. It's important to make the most of your platform to say what's happening in Hong Kong. Theo.
Thank you, Theo. On the roadmap thing, if we do that, we need to start from the most obscure mounts and work our way back. So we can't start with Nikon F and Leica M. We got to start with like DKL and work our way backwards.
Could do.
I just think it'll be funnier. But at the same time, when it comes to classic lenses, all of the really well-known mounts, there's just so much information on Google that I feel like we can talk about it and it's cool, but this sort of cheap and expensive possibility for each one, we just be kind of repeating what's already out there. But you don't get a lot of buyer's guide to exact mount.
This is true. This is true.
But going to earlier part of his question about there's 4 lenses mentioned there. Let's ignore the Nikon zoom because that's what we do.
Yep.
That's a good example of what we were talking about earlier. The 35 to 70, 3.5 to 4.8.
Yeah, I'm sure it's wonderful. So the Nikkor 50 1.4 AI. I don't know if there's because they went through so many iterations with the Nikon 50 1.4.
Yeah.
And when a lot of lenses went from AI to AIS, a lot of them were changed quite radically, and some of them weren't at all. And I've got a feeling it's the same as the AIS, but I'm not 100% sure. I know that the one before it was definitely different, and I think the one before that was definitely different, but I'm not so sure about the AI to AIS. But certainly I've used the AIS, and it's an excellent lens, and I think it's every bit a match for the Carl Zeiss planar, just slightly different in colour rendition. If you like your blues, the Nikon is better. If you like your greens, the planar is better in my opinion. Plus also you get an extra aperture blade with the Nikon as well. So yeah, it's a good lens. The 35 2.8, I know very little about that one on the pre-AI, and I've used the pre-AI 135 3.5 and had decent results out of it. I mean, to be fair, Nikon lenses, I can't think of any duds, and even the ones that are well known to be duds, which is funnily enough one of the zoom lenses. I forget which one it is, but it's one of the early ones, which Carl actually used to talk about.
Probably the 46 to whatever it is,
or 44 to 88 or something.
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing, isn't it? But it became the lens that was so bad it's now good kind of thing. But there are different versions of that, and apparently they got it right eventually. So just because you find that lens, you might actually find one of the good ones. But who knows? One of the bad one might be the best one, as far as we're concerned. So hope that clears that one up.
That's a steal though for €12.
Oh yeah,
sure, that's great.
Yeah. And the 50, I'm pretty sure the AIS and the AI are the same optically, but the biggest difference is the focus throw. I forget which one. One of them is significantly longer than the other. I think the AI has a longer focus throw.
Yeah, that would.
It's the same with the 105-2.5.
That would make sense. Yeah. Yeah. Hey man, that FE, that is my favorite Nikon.
Yeah. Shame it doesn't work.
Too bad it's broken.
Yeah, too bad it's broken. Yeah, but you know what? Just check the seriously, check the battery compartment. It might just need fresh batteries, or it's a little bit of corrosion cleaned out. We get these a lot at the shop, and they can be a little funky on the electronics, but a lot of that is just down to a little bit of corrosion in the battery compartment. So clean it up real good and try it out, because it's a great camera. I mean, to me, a
little bit of vinegar or lemon juice on a Q-tip. Yeah, and rub it and then dry it.
Yep.
If there's corrosion, I mean, we're assuming what the problem is, but if that is it,
it's very. I mean, it could have a dead shot. Who knows? But I mean, a lot of times it's literally just a little bit of electrical stuff that's not happening because it's all electronic. But it's a great camera with a great viewfinder display. So yeah, try to get it working.
Actually, that's a quick point though, because the FE is compatible with pre-AI lenses.
That's correct.
So, which is now making me wonder if those other two pre-AI lenses have been converted. I mean, I'm sure he'll know if they have or not, but it is possible to mount a pre-AI lens on an FE, because you've got that little tab on the mount.
Yes, you can.
Button next to it. You press the button, it flicks the tab out of the way, and hey presto, you can use it. Although you don't get the auto indexing, so you don't get open aperture metering, do you? I think that's the
you got it right. Yeah, but it actually will work, and it won't harm the camera. So it's like one of the very few truly compatible Nikon bodies. I'm a big fan of that Nikon FE. Yeah. So all right, okay. Finally,
we've actually caught up for the first time in I really do not know how long. So thank you for bearing with us, everybody.
Finally, we have Jamie Bloomquist, Thursday, November 21st. Subject: winter shipping. Guys, do you tend to avoid buying eBay lenses during winter, as they could spend a few days in sub-zero temps during transit? Any concerns or humbug? Thank you, Jamie Bloomquist. I don't know. They're not puppies.
Yeah. I mean, surely it's worse to have them sitting in like humid heat.
Yeah. I think the only concern with cold is that I've definitely seen this, is you get them delivered and they've been out with the postman or whatever, and it's been in the cold, and then you bring it inside and it could fog up.
Right, condensation.
But that won't fundamentally harm the lens. It'll just, Yeah.
It could. I mean, I'm imagining a scenario where you're dealing with something like Soviet Greece.
Yeah. But you know what? It was probably crap 25 years ago already. Yeah. So it won't make it any worse.
I mean, a bigger issue would be with, actually, no, even with electronic cameras, the cold won't do anything other than reduce the battery life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's no big deal.
Yeah.
I would say Canadians can do photography too.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I would say if anything, if you're concerned, just don't open the package right away. Let it heat up to room temperature, and that will, in theory, slowly stabilize the temperature inside the box, and then it won't fog up on you. But I don't think it will fundamentally harm. I don't think No, you know what? It's a terrible time of year to buy those rare lenses that we all are looking for. So don't do it. and it's no gas November still, and so you really don't want to buy any lenses right now.
No.
Wait until after December 25th to buy any lenses.
Yes.
I agree with everything you said there. In particular, I'd rather not have a lens turned up than it just feels like it's been in the sauna for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it fills me with dread as a seller selling them to hot countries if it's going to be sitting somewhere warm for a long period of time and incubating something that I didn't know was there before, and it sprouts while it's there. So,
I just assume every lens coming from Thailand has like coconuts growing in it or something. Like you know what I mean? Like I see Thailand, I'm like, I want to buy fish from Thailand. I mean, I'm sorry.
Well, there we go.
No, we love you, Thailand. It's not you, it's us.
That is one of the fastest growing markets for old lenses.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I bet it is, right?
It totally is.
I do send quite a bit out there, funnily enough. So
I just worry about fungus. And other tropical diseases.
Yeah. Well, that's what used to get tropical cameras as well.
That's true.
The old large format cameras. If you were going to go out into a humid area, then you had to have a camera that was capable of taking it. So different wood was used. It probably had different expansions in there and so on. So it would still work when you got into the jungle. Otherwise, the whole thing might just expand and become unusable.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that is it. We've done all the emails. We've caught up.
Good God, we've done it.
Yeah. We were chatting before the show. We're thinking, if we do this in an hour and a half, that's pretty good going. So failed miserably there.
Failed miserably.
But so hopefully we won't let these emails build up quite as many as we've done now. So we've got through them all. So. I'm thinking that we really do need to wind things down. Is there anything that Perry, you need to get off your chest before we disappear?
No. Does that include shout-outs?
No, it doesn't. No.
No. Okay, then no.
And you, Johnny?
No. I do have shout-outs, but we'll do those when we do the wrap-up. Okay.
Well, I'll quickly go through and say thank you to those people that have donated to us via Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com. Just do a search for Classic Lenses Podcast and you'll find us. And it's 2 weeks since we've done this, so there's a few on there. Dan Dodd, the John Bruning episode was amazing. It talks like... I'm struggling to follow the word in there, but yeah, Dan loved that one, so that's good. That's good news. Ricardo Bayon donated to us. Finally, digital. I can get behind that. Took a strike, but whatever. Nigel Cliff said, "No, I'm not going to suggest you buy ball cream to help Perry's chafing. He didn't buy that for himself. Well, there you go. Thank you for that, Nigel. I saw Nigel yesterday as well, so good to see him. And Theo, I think this might be the same Theo Biddle from earlier. It is really important to continue documenting what is happening in Hong Kong with photos, but also through this platform. Keep it going, Perry. This goes beyond the rest of the podcast. This goes beyond. The rest of the podcast is great too. Mike Epstein donated to us, and Jamie Bloomquist, who is also known on Instagram as Want20 Plastic. And every time he mentions that, I remember, oh yeah, I follow him. May your holidays be top, excellent, plus, plus, plus. No haze, fungus, or separation. Thank you very much, Jamie. Okay, so shout outs, Perry. Have you've got some saved up there, I guess.
I have 3 in increasing specificity. First shout out is just to all the people in Hong Kong, especially those of you who came out and voted yesterday, and the ones who've just been, all of us have been suffering for the last 6 months. So shout out to all of you guys. Second shout out is to everyone who sent me a message after the solo podcast. I really do appreciate it. And I just want to run through some names. These are people who reached out to me on Instagram and or Facebook Messenger, so not people who sort of publicly commented. But Neil Piper, Lawrence Dunn, Andre Dominguez, Ethan Moses, John Bruning, Cheyenne Morrison, Rob Jameson, Roland Banderob, Bob Matter, Gabe Sachs, Graham from Sunny 16. What the hell is his surname?
Jago.
There we go.
or as I said it, Jargo the other week, but there you go.
Yeah, I can never remember that. The Film Sweats, that's his Instagram handle. He's based in Australia. And finally, Scott Graham. So thank you guys a lot for your heartfelt messages. It's really nice to know that people are enjoyed the diary, but also are watching from afar. And my final shout out is to a local restaurant here in Hong Kong. Johnny, you might appreciate this. But there is a restaurant in an area called Sai Pun, which is called Electric Avenue. And they are unashamedly open about their sort of stance on all this stuff in Hong Kong. But they also make some of the best damn burgers in Hong Kong. So they're doing free meals for any students from the universities who have been affected by the protests. Wow. But I went there the other day and I had what someone told me was a great burger. It was originally named, and apologies for this, Simon, it was originally called the Fuck the Police Burger. But it's now been renamed the NWA Burger to be a little more subtle. I wasn't sure if that was on a secret menu or not, but nope, it's front and center in the middle of their menu, and it is the best damn burger I've had in Hong Kong. You know, my girlfriend and I, we travel the world sometimes hunting out the best burgers we can find. So far, our favorite is from the Burgers Priest in Toronto. So if you're in Toronto, you know what I'm talking about. But this is the best one I've had in Hong Kong by far. And just very quickly, what's in the NWA burger? This place is run by a British guy, by the way, a lovely British man. The NWA burger features port and wine mayo, English beef, fine English beef, whiskey cheddar, bourbon bacon, gin cowboy candy. Now, for those of you not familiar with cowboy candy is candied jalapeno peppers. But these ones are candied up to the point where they've got a little bit of structural integrity to them, and then they're chopped up in a fine, like a relish. And then there's an NEIPA, onion strings, and it comes with a shot of bourbon on the side. It is so freaking good.
Whoa.
So if you are in Hong Kong, go grab yourself an NWA burger at Electric Avenue, support a good cause, and just have the best burger in the city.
That is excellent.
Those are my shots.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Well, Johnny, how about yourself?
Wow. Now I'm just thinking about burgers, Barry. Dang. Oh, geez.
Cowboy candy is an outstanding condiment for a burger.
That sounds excellent. There's a burger place in Chicago called Au Cheval or Small Cheval. Au Cheval is the fancy-ish restaurant. Small Cheval is just basically like a little burger place. It's really good. Oh man, I want a burger now. Okay, so I got a quick couple of shout outs. Ray D. These are people who stopped in at the shop. So Ray D stopped by, and Gary Florzak stopped by. So a couple of shout outs there. I know I have some more, but I've actually found my little card, my little note card with those names on it. So other shout outs to come later. That's all my shout outs. Do you want to do the wrap up, Simon?
Yeah, we will do.
Okay.
And that's you do that. So I'll hand back over to you, Johnny.
So how to interact with Classic Lenses Podcast. Send us an email at classiclensespodcast@gmail.com. And as we have proven today, we will read them all in good time. So please do that. And of course, keep up with the podcast at classiclensespodcast.com. If you're on Facebook, you can follow the dedicated group there, which is the Classic Lenses Podcast Facebook group. If you're on Instagram, you can follow along with our partners there. And that is Best Vintage Lens. And they have daily wonderful, sometimes multiple daily wonderful shots taken with classic lenses. So check that out. Is Ricardo still on strike? I think he's still on strike. Oh, he's not on strike?
No.
Oh, okay. So when appropriate, Ricardo will write the show notes too. And you want to check those out also at Best Vintage Lens, which is the Better Than the Podcast notes. So be sure to check that out.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you say podcast, Ricardo writes a summary rather than the podcast notes, doesn't he? So,
yes.
Your best place for the podcast notes is
Best Vintage
our
Lens?
website.
Or what? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, I see where you're going with that, Simon. Yeah. If you want to get all the notes and such for each podcast, you really want to go over to the website, which is classiclensespodcast.com. I said that already.
Yeah, it's just with you saying that
I
writes
gotcha.
notes, so I just thought I'd clarify,
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Well, yes, yeah. And what else do we have? What else do I usually
people want
say?
to read and watch, sort of watch at the same time.
Oh, right. Yes, you can do that on YouTube, where we have our podcast on YouTube. I have not even bothered to look at this yet. Have any of you done this?
Well, I go to it occasionally, so to find out how many, what value of throng of people are actually watching it.
I just want to do it for the bad lip reading. That's, to me, the bad captioning is the only reason.
Well, Matt Jones, he does actually occasionally comment on there. And highlight some of the bad captioning that
bad captioning. Yeah. All right. Well, check that out too. And you can follow me sometime next year on Instagram at I don't even know what it is anymore. System Photography. At System Photography on Instagram. And you can meet me at Central Camera Company in person, or you can stop by and say hello, and I will be there. Do that too.
Actually, there's a bit of positive news on the YouTube there, and that's Perry's audio was 14 views is not an outstanding amount, but it's pretty good for what we normally get. After actually it's not even been out a week, is it? So it's like six days since that's been going. So a potential record following
record setting
of Perry there. So well done, Perry, there, for driving our ratings up through the roof on YouTube. Okay, well, from me, I'm not going to do any shout outs, but I've already done them. So let's wrap up. So my bits are. You can follow me on Twitter as Simon4. That's Simon and FOR. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic. We hang out in the Facebook group Classic Lenses Podcast, and some of us also hang out in Photography with Classic Lenses too. The music for the show is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, and the music is called Octo Blues. And I hope you've enjoyed this week's show, and if you can, be like Carl.